All right, let's get into some transactions and injury updates. Reds made a flurry of moves this morning before announcing the lineup. Some more moves are expected in the coming days and week. So, I want to break down kind of where we are right now with the Reds and the moves that were made today and expected moves upcoming.
Yeah, we'll just run through them here. Rece Hinds called up, didn't get in the game on Sunday, but he was called up. Garrett Hampson, DFA'd. We'll see if he gets claimed, but you never know. You never know with how baseball waiver claims get. I'll never try to make a prediction on that again. Jeimer Candelario is going to be activated on Monday against the Yankees. Austin Hayes likely going to need a rehab assignment. They said specifically at Double-A. And then Noelvi Marte moving his rehab to AAA this week. So let's go run through each player returning and maybe speculate, Craig, who we think would be replacing. So let's start with Candelario because he's going to be activated on Monday. I hope it's Connor Joe, but I think CES not playing the last 2 days makes it possible they go that route, just because I guess of the playing time concern. For me, it's a no-brainer. It's Connor Joe. Candelario is more on the bench, getting some spot starts, maybe playing against lefties only. My long shot would be Benson just because of his struggles, but I hope to God they've looked at his exit velocities and how hard he's hit the ball and wants to continue to give him some run. Benson would more just be because there's a lot of lefties coming up. Maybe they say, let's send him down for 10 days while these lefties are going, make sure he gets some at-bats and call him back up. But I think it's Joe or CES. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say Joe, and I hope I'm right.
Well, it would seem weird to call up Rece Hinds to immediately send him back down tomorrow.
That's why I
didn't
put him on this at all.
But I also, I mean, he's clearly not in the favor of Terry Francona right now. Hasn't been for the majority of the year. I don't necessarily understand calling him up today if you're just going to send him right back down. But Rece Hinds is seemingly the obvious answer for that, especially if it's going to be as soon as tomorrow. I do agree with you. Connor Joe has options. You could send him down to Louisville and not have to worry about losing him and still have his versatility off the bench or at AAA in the future. CES is struggling, and Terry's not really giving him a whole lot of opportunity to break out of the funk either. He hasn't played a whole lot of late. Certainly seems like an opportunity for him to go down to Louisville, get a lot of at-bats, which ultimately for some of these young guys, Nick, is really what I want to see out of them this year anyway. I think I would rather CES be at AAA and have consistent at-bats than to see him sit on the bench and not get into the games, especially if the guys that are going to play over top of him are Spencer Steer and Jeimer Candelario. Respectfully to those two, especially when you're facing a right-handed pitcher, I'd rather see CES in there and hope that maybe he makes contact and hits one out at first base rather than Spencer Steer, who can't really hit right-handed pitching either. So I don't know. It's certainly an interesting dilemma there, and I'm not 100% sure where the Reds are going to go, but Jeimer Candelario is going to play first base and third base for this team. CES certainly seems like the fit there, but I don't know that I really want to move him down to Louisville unless it's just because he's not going to get at bats at the major league level.
Yeah, forgive me. CES didn't start all 3 games against St. Louis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible. I don't think it's Hinds, and I'm gonna get to him in a second. I'll tell you why. But I agree with you. If they're not gonna play CES, send them to AAA. But I'm tired of having to handicap these decisions that, well, if you're not going to play him, send him to AAA. No, just play him. He's going to go down to AAA, and what is he going to do? He's going to absolutely destroy, every single time he's been in AAA. And what good is it going to do for his progression? You got to give him some run. I don't know. I mean, there's been, 4 players on this team that have been really hot, that have actually looked like guys that can actually put you on the back. And 2 of them are CES and Benson. The other ones are Ellie and maybe McLean. And Friedel and Stevenson, I haven't felt like have maybe been those put you on the back guys, but they've been good. And I'm not sending a guy down with that much upside. But I'm with you. I don't know. I didn't realize he didn't play on Friday either, so that kind of makes me think it probably is him, and it's going to piss me off.
3 days without a single at bat certainly seems like wasting opportunities there. Next one on the list, Austin Hayes. Sounds like it's going to be a little while before we see him, but it's worth talking about anyway. He's going to be going to Chattanooga, interestingly enough, for his rehab stint, it sounds like. First, any thoughts on why he's going to Chattanooga instead of Louisville? And then the second question, obviously, is the corresponding move when that does happen.
I haven't looked it up, but I assume it's probably about proximity. But one thought that did come into mind is that are they considering promoting some outfielders at Chattanooga to Louisville? The second half in today, we're going to talk about that in a second. Could that be why? It's probably a proximity thing. That's usually what it is. Here's why I don't think Rece Hinds is the guy going down for Candelario, is because I think that the Hayes news that just broke is directly tied to Austin Hayes. Because I think, this is me trying to think between the lines here, I think that the Reds thought that the Austin Hayes was going to get activated against the Yankees. I think that was their thought, that was their hope, because they are facing two lefties, and it was supposed to be three, now it's only two, but they were wanting him to be activated for that series. Surprising, because I've heard from multiple people that the guy's hitting like 10 home runs in a row in batting practice, but they must feel like he's not over the hump, or he doesn't feel like there's something there. And I think that they decided to call up Hinds because they determined that Hayes wasn't going to be ready, and they wanted a big right-handed power bat. Now, the whole, okay, why was Garrett Hampson on the roster over him? I don't know, but I think that the Hayes and the Hinds news have to be intertwined, in my opinion.
For what it's worth, Louisville is at Durham this coming week, and Chattanooga is at home. So maybe it's just having them in their own facility and being able to control the environment and the access that Hayes will have during his rehab stint. But I mean, I think realistically, as we talk about just options in terms of who gets sent down, it's going to be whoever wasn't sent down for Jeimer Candelario, or, depending on timing, whoever isn't sent down for Noelvi Marte. And we'll get into Noelvi Marte in just a moment, but it certainly feels like Connor Joe would be that guy if Rece Hinds is sent down or CES. So I think realistically, Nick, and we'll get into Noelvi Marte here in a minute, but my gut feeling is that within the next 2 weeks, barring another injury or something else, CES, Connor Joe, and Rece Hinds will not be on the Major League roster.
Yeah, I think Hinds goes down for Hayes, but I think that those two are together. I think they want one of Hayes or Hinds on the roster in the next stretch coming up. So I think that Hinds goes down whenever Hayes comes back, unless Rece Hinds absolutely goes off, and then they have to change their course. But I think they're clearly expecting that to be the outcome.
All right, and Noelvi Marte, he's been rehabbing in Arizona. He'll be moving his rehab stint to AAA this week. Not sure on a timeline for him back on the Major League roster. Depending on how he performs, I guess he'll kind of drive that. If he struggles, then he might stay down there for as long as he can. If he doesn't struggle, then they might try and get up earlier than later. But thoughts on Noelvi Marte and his rehab stint?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be Connor Joe replacing him if they do send down CES. I think there's maybe an outside chance it could be Espinal if Marte, because Espinal, where is Espinal going to play if Marte comes back?
I mean, I think Tito loves Santiago Espinal, regardless of how poorly he's performed.
Well, will the Reds front office finally buck up and say enough is enough? We're going to take him away from you if you're going to not use him properly. I think there's an outside chance because he is a third baseman, and you have an actual legitimate third baseman, not a plug and play Band-Aid third baseman. I think there's an outside chance that it's him, but I do think it's probably. I think Candy's going to be replaced by CES, then I think Marte will be replaced by Joe. But it'll be interesting to see. My interesting thought on Marte is he's looked really good. I mean, we haven't seen it, but the reports are that he looks very good in the ACL. It'll be interesting to see if Marte goes to Louisville and struggles. Does he still get called up? Did what he do before he got injured give him enough credibility to just say, yeah, we're going to call him back up? I lean yes. I say take a shot with him. He's kind of been a lightning rod either way. So I don't really care what he does at AAA. Do you care what he does at AAA?
I think you have to. I think the struggles that he's had kind of necessitate that. If Noelvi Marte had the extended period of success and you thought, okay, well, regardless of how things go, he's still going to be better than what we have on the major league roster, then I think that the answer is different. But as of right now, with the kind of hot and cold Noelvi Marte that we've had, he started to look good before he got injured. But before that, he had struggled mightily for the better part of the season. And, I think that the Reds are going to want to see something out of Noelvi Marte in his rehab stint before they commit to putting him back on the major league roster. And part of it is just due to the desire to have guys like Santiago Espinal be able to play most days. I think Tito values his defense. I think Tito values his versatility. He's given the Reds innings in the outfield, at third base, at second base, play basically anywhere. So, that kind of flexibility is valuable, especially when you're going to be taking guys like Connor Joe, who is your other real flexible defender, and going to be moving him potentially down to Louisville. You don't really have a whole lot of other flexibility unless you want to consider Gavin Lux that guy. But my gut tells me that Tito Francona likes having the flexibility of a Santiago Espinal on the roster to be able to plug in wherever you need him. And regardless of how it's turned out, I think Tito likes his contact hitting approach and the fact that he puts the ball in play. And, unfortunately that contact hasn't been super hard and hasn't found the grass lately, but I still think that Tito is going to value that over guys like CES, Connor Joe, and Rece Hinds. And even I think guys like Will Benson, who the Reds have not been shy on demoting in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I would say though, like if you have Marte up, you have CES who can play third base. You also have Candelario that can play third base, and Lux can play. So you have 4 players that can play third base. Now, Marte is probably the only one that we hope can play well. Marte, the jury's still out if the what we saw defensively that looked like improvements is actually going to be that going forward. But you have 4 options there. Lux can play second base. McLean can play shortstop if Ellie needs a day off. You have everything covered. So it does make Espinal a lot more expendable. And I just don't think that, especially with the way that he gets overused, it makes sense to have him on the roster. So I would just probably
think that the Reds view Santiago Espinal in a much different light than they view those other 4 options, because
they're wrong.
He is the defensive option. And that's our opinion, Nick, and I get that. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to look at this from the Reds' perspective while you're looking at it from your perspective, right? So you're talking about what you would do. I'm talking about what I think the Reds are going to do. Now, I've been proven wrong before that I can't think like the Reds, because there have been moves that they've made that I was surprised by. Things like promoting Chase Burns, which we're going to see on Tuesday night. I personally think that they want that defensive specialist, and Santiago Espinal is that defensive specialist for the Reds, regardless of what we think and what we would do.
But how many times is he going to come in a late game defensive to replace Noelvi Marte if Marte's up here?
They put him in the 6th inning today, Nick.
But who was he replacing? Who was the third baseman to start the game?
Gavin Lux.
But so that's different. That's not Noelvi. If Noelvi Marte's up here, you're not going to be replacing a guy late in the game like you are now. Like, yeah, I totally understand. Espinal's a lot more value if he's coming in late and replacing Gavin Lux or CES at third base, who aren't real third basemen. I mean, Noelvi Marte's a real, legitimate third baseman.
But we just talked about the struggles that Noelvi Marte has had offensively. You just went out of your way to talk about how the Reds have 4 different guys that can play third base. Is Noelvi Marte a guy that the Reds are going to turn to as a defensive replacement if he's not in the starting lineup on a given day? I don't know that he is. I think Santiago Espinal is that guy that they're going to keep on the roster just for his defensive abilities, regardless of everything else. And that's just my opinion. I, in the famous words of Nick Kirby, a lot can happen between now and then, right? So who knows what is ultimately gonna happen? But I think when you look at the three moves that we're specifically talking about, Jeimer Candelario, Austin Hayes, and Noelvi Marte, for me, Nick, the three moves are CES, Connor Joe, and Rece Hinds.
I think you're right. I agree. I don't think they're going to demote Espinal. I just think they should.
And on that, we'll move on.